My name is Jim George, and I'm the Market Development Manager for the molecular products here at One Lambda. It is my pleasure to be hosting our webinar today on discovering the power of HistoTrac software for your HLA laboratory. As a reminder, this presentation is recorded for future viewing on the One Lambda website. So it is my privilege to introduce to you Brooke Watson. She began her HLA career in 2000 at the MedStar Research Institute in Washington, D.C., where she was an HLA technologist, HistoTrac beta tester, and eventual supervisor. In 2003, she joined the University Health Systems in San Antonio as an HLA technologist, where she received her CHS, implemented HistoTrac, and performed HLA testing for bone marrow and solid organ testing. In 2007, she continued her HLA career at St. Louis University as an HLA technologist and HistoTrac super user. In 2013, Brooke joined SystemLink as a sales and implementation consultant and has helped drive the industry's adoption of HistoTrac by leading the software's implementation and helping support over 125 labs worldwide. It is now my pleasure to turn today's program over to our first presenter, Brooke Watson.
Thank you, Jim.
Welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. I hope we're in for a good trip. So the presentation today will give a little bit on how the software itself, for people that don't quite know what it does, but it also will offer some insight into some features for the folks that are currently using HistoTrac. So what is HistoTrac? HistoTrac is a laboratory information management system, so it's a LIMS, and it's probably a common word that most of you have heard of lately, at least. It is an on-premise solution, and so what that really means for you all is that you control your data. It is stored in your environment. It is not housed anywhere else other than in your environment. HistoTrac, because it is a laboratory information management system, it will manage your entire workflow. So from the time that the sample is accessioned, to ordering a test, to the summary report, all of that workflow is managed within the system. We sell the system based on a core software. And so the core software would do everything from creating the patients, giving them samples, ordering tests, and then at the end of that outcome, giving you essentially a report to give to your clinicians. But we recognize that that's not a one-stop solution. So we have ways to customize that solution to make sure that we give our customers exactly what they need. It was developed by SystemLink in 1999. And at the end of 2021, we were acquired by Thermo Fisher Scientific and integrated into One Lambda. HistoTrac was designed by people that work in HLA labs. It is Microsoft Windows-based software, SQL Server database, business objects for reports. It is role-driven for functional security access, and it is updated for customer requests throughout the world. So who is using HistoTrac? Jim mentioned we are installed in about 125 laboratories throughout the world. So those are blood centers, HLA labs, OPO labs. They're doing testing for bone marrow, disease associations, solid organ. This schematic here, what I like about it is it shows the core software, right? So if all you had was the core software, that's this piece. But then it represents what else we can do to give you that custom solution. So if you are a bone marrow lab and you need to send typing, whether that's Form 22 or 117s over to the NMDP, there would be a module that would send that through the API back to them. We have folks that need HistoTrac on the web for their external clients. So if you have coordinators, if you're tired of getting a phone call in the middle of the night saying what's the most current serum sample on a patient, folks that have HistoTrac on the web would allow their clinicians to log in and have access to pieces and parts of HistoTrac that the lab has given them access to. So if you're familiar with the customized view term in HistoTrac, you're essentially customizing the view for those clinicians, so they don't get to see everything unless you've given them that permission. In the upper corner here are our reagent vendor utilities. And so this is where you would have performed those assays with vendors or with the vendors kits, analyze them in their software, and then you're able to import the results from those various analysis software into HistoTrac. And then ultimately from an internal workflow, you'd be able to go ahead and sign those off, review them, make an interpretation, and then send out a report. We interface to various hospital systems. So this is what we would refer to as an HL7 interface. And so this is that a doctor could place an order in an EMR. We would receive it in HistoTrac. You would do everything internally in HistoTrac, and then at the end of the signing off of that result or report, it would go back and post seamlessly into the hospital record. And then lastly, down here, it's just an interface with organ sharing databases. So in the States, that's UNOS or UNET, CBS for Canadian folks. And so we do have various pieces and functionality that will connect HistoTrac back to UNET. So how do we build this HistoTrac custom solution? We talked about the core software. We have various modules for lab that will help establish a laboratory workflow, reagent vendor utilities, those registry interfaces, HL7 interfaces. We build lots of custom interfaces or custom report development. We do data conversion, and we do on-site training. So all of this would be part of the process that we would help you go down that discovery to learn what is it that you need to make this solution yours. I won't go through all of this. So this is the core software. This is what you would get. The big thing to know about this is that it's based on named user licenses. This is probably one of the biggest questions we always get. It is not based on concurrent or the number of people logged in at one time. It is named user accounts. So this is where you're able to store the demographics of patients and link them to donors via cases, and I'll show you that in a little bit. You're able to put serum and cells into an inventory, so into a box location, so you'll have an electronic version. You're able to mark samples out as unacceptable, so this becomes important. So you'll want to capture all the samples you're receiving, and then at the end of maybe of a certain term, you'll be able to generate an unacceptable report to then go back. Maybe you'll have a dialysis unit problem, and you'd be able to help use this unacceptable sample feature to help kind of maybe diagnose maybe a dialysis unit problem. You're able to build internal workflows. So you build trays and worksheets, capture DNA extractions, do turnaround times. You can do reporting, ad hoc query. I'll show you this in just a little bit. So this is just querying back our data. You have results for all of your testing needs, billing, and then a test environment so that if you needed to bring on a new methodology, you're not doing that in your production database. Or if you have a new technologist, you would want them to train in the test environment, not your prod. Biggest takeaway for this is from a reagent vendor utility perspective, we have interfaces with all of the vendors you would see at an ASHI conference. So when you walk into the vendor hall booth, we have interfaces with all the vendors there. We do have integration with the One Lambda suite of software, but we do have interfaces with all of the other vendors. Various laboratory workflows. So you might need as part of your solution tube labels, which is very common. HistoTrac on the web we described a little bit earlier if you wanted your clinicians to log in and take a look at what samples are available. We do have a dashboard, which would allow usually management within the lab to understand where are your test and or reports in the various cycle to know, maybe you have a bunch of NGS tests that are getting ready to expire from their turnaround time, and you want to get them out the door so they don't go past that time. We do and house management of data for cure and microsatellite testing. We have equipment and reagent supplies. Registry interfaces, again, just the NMDP 22117. For UNOS, we're able to import the waitlist, and you can compare the UNOS waitlist data with your HistoTrac patient data. You can export unacceptables to the API. You can import a match run, and then along with the match run, usually then you can perform various virtual cross-match functionality. From the CBS, from the Canadian Blood Services perspective, you can export patient and donor typings and the patient unacceptables. HL7 interfaces, so this is where we get into those hospital interfaces between, your Epics, your Meditechs, your Cerners. We have ADT, incoming orders, outbound results, and billing. So ADT is from your demographic system, or I'm sorry, from your registration system. Incoming orders is what did your clinician want you to perform. Result is the result of that order, either via discrete or distinct data or PDFs, and then also billing. We do offer various other services. They were kind of discussed a little bit further or earlier in the PowerPoint. Data conversion. So if you needed us to take your legacy data and get it converted into HistoTrac, so you have kind of a one-stop database, we could do that. We do on-site training visits, report development, and we do, this seems to be, everybody's switching servers right now. So we do offer hours for supporting for your server upgrades. So why do labs need HistoTrac? All of these are important, but by having interfaces where you don't have to transcribe the data, you should reduce your transcription errors, which hopefully then should decrease the time that it takes you to get your results out, which should hopefully then improve your turnaround time. We're able to manage that internal workflow for you, so that can kind of help you deduce whether you have a problem. Maybe it's a tech is taking longer to get a result out, or maybe there's a kind of a clog in the wheel between when it gets resulted and then when it gets reported. We can secure the patient data. We can standardize your data entry. So a lot of the menus will be drop down, which means you have to select the value. And by standardizing that data, it helps us to data mine it easier. We can integrate with your hospital EMRs, which your clinicians will love, which will definitely help you serve them better. And then we're able to audit the data. So any changes that would be happening within the HistoTrac system, we could capture an audit history on that and be able to produce a report if you needed to. So from within HistoTrac, what are some of the latest developments that are going on? So we have started on a new version of the software. The new features, fixes, enhancements, those have been identified, and they're kind of being organized and agreed upon for development to go ahead and start taking action. We are doing virtual cross-match utilities. So this, with some UNOS changes, this is a very hot topic within HLA. So we have virtual cross-match utilities that will allow you to assess the current and historic DSA between not only deceased donors, but also living donors. It would allow you to order a virtual cross-match test to result out these assessments and then generate a report. And then we've also begun some development on some deeper integration with Fusion that will auto-populate the test and the raw data directly into HistoTrac, so you wouldn't have to import it. It would be based on some existing utility settings. So if you have some settings where you don't want the NMDP codes, or you do, these would be based off of those settings. And then we're also able to auto-populate the antibody based on MFI thresholds into the HistoTrac test fields. So you wouldn't have to apply the thresholds anymore. And then lastly, we are working on a utility to import deceased donor typings into UNIT. So let's go ahead and take a look here and get into the software. So this is HistoTrac. And so for those of you that have seen it, maybe you always wondered why it is the way it is. So the menu structure here is based on the fact of a typical HLA workflow. So you would create patients and donors, give those patients samples, and then order test. From a work management perspective, you could put those samples onto trays or generate labels. When you're finished, after you've done all of this, you want to result it. Probably maybe a supervisor needs to review it. Somebody would sign it off. At the end of testing then becomes kind of some ancillary features here. So you need to maybe put the sample into storage or bill it or query the data back. Do some kind of in-house keeping on your supplies, your purchasing, and your equipment. And then we do have this administration, so this will be the table that will help drive the database itself. And then importantly, it will have some auditing features that can be turned on and off based on the patient sample and test. So if I open up this particular patient, this is just an example of a pop-up note that can be added if you needed to alert someone. We have these various folders. I'll just go through a couple of these. So this right here is the patient's general information. It's going to house the demographics of the patient. And this will also then house your typing of the patient over time. We have the sample history folder. So this is where you're going to log in all of your samples, be able to decide what specimen type what was drawn with, sample date, sample time, place orders, order and extraction, stick it into a box if you needed. We have the various history folders for the for the tests that were performed. And so what's nice about this is it breaks them down based on the fields that are needed for the various tests. So antibody tests have definite different fields that are needed than a typing test. So by separating these out, we're able to give these fields on the screen some uniqueness to the test that you're performing. You are able to customize the view, so each user could make these columns in their own order or own filtering. We talked a little bit earlier about that audit history. So this is what that would look like. So it would capture for you when the patient was created and who did it, what date and time that was done, and then it will also keep track for you changes that are happening as updates. So in this example, I would have changed this field. It would have been blank, and now the new value is 01. And so this will come, if you are actually networked, it would have your Windows user ID as well. So this is usually a good place to go back and try to figure out it. If somebody had changed the medical record number, you'd be able to come back here and maybe try to figure out why they did, and have a source to go to figure out, to potentially troubleshoot. Like in this example here, I changed the social. So why did I do that? Cases is a way within the software to link our patients and donors. And so within that, here is my patient. My brother is down here. And so I am able within my case to make haplotype assignments. So it will display for you the typing for your patients and then these various donors, and you can assign the haplotypes. These haplotypes then can be generated and presented onto a report. So if I just pick my patient and my brother donor, I can then present my haplotypes on a report. The reports would come with your logo and your address information, and then this information down here. So in this example, it would have the serology typing because it's a solid organ report, but it would also display your haplotype. We also have ways to assign mismatches. So within my case, I'm able to assign mismatches. If I go to my donor, my aunt here, this again is displaying the typing for the patient. This is the typing for the donor. I have the ability in these 4 fields to assign mismatches on an allele or antigen level. This is a drop down, so if you needed to change the values or streamline them, you could. And then in worlds where Bone marrow labs might want to keep track of graft versus host disease. You have these fields down here. Again, that information can be presented onto a report for you. And in this example, this is just host versus graft disease, and it's displaying for you the mismatches per locus as you had assigned them. At the end of all of this, one of the most important things is, I've got all of this data. How do I get it out? And so there is a feature within the software called the ad hoc query tool. And I have a few examples that are set up here. Some of them are pretty Mickey Mouse or simple. This is just one table, the patient table, and it's literally going to give me all of my renal patients. This is something that in a lot of labs, you might have an IT resource that is familiar with this that could help. Or I have a lot of just lab savvy people that maybe with our help, we design these queries for them. You are able to export these. So you could export it then as a CSV or as a text file. And so then you're able to do further manipulation or maybe send it off to somebody else. A lot of times, not a lot of times, every single lab, has an inspection cycle. And so some of these queries could actually be ran if you needed to perform to help you fill in some of that data that's needed for the number of tests, types of tests, things like that are needed for your inspection cycle. So in this example, it's pulling back for me all of the molecular tests, or I guess typing tests, because I have some serologies that were performed within a certain date range and that they were not canceled. You could run pending test queries. So if you needed to see, do I have a list of tests that are still waiting there that haven't been signed off? Maybe you need to go focus on getting these turned around so they don't overdo on their turnaround time. A last example that I'll show you is just that we could present in this from a patient level. You could look at the UNOS unacceptables and then what we call the patient's cumulative or historic unacceptables. You could run this report to see maybe where you have potential discrepancies for, if you needed to tidy up your data, or maybe you needed to go research and find out why. One other one I want to just show you real fast because I think it becomes pretty helpful is if you needed to query the data back on a patient where they have a certain typing, right? So in this example, I want to find any patient that has a 1301 and or a 702. So maybe you need to pull back a certain subset of patients. So in this query, I'm getting that traditional typing A, B, and DR, but I'm only returning the patients that have the 0702 or the 1301. So within HistoTrac, to implement HistoTrac, it's a pretty complex system. It's a process that requires us to get to know the intricacies of your workflows and your system. And we recognize that that's not a solution that works well for everyone. And so what do you do, or what can we give you if you need to implement HistoTrac quickly, or if you are a smaller lab and you don't want to, you're just not that complex. You don't want all the choices that sometimes come with this. So in development right now, we are working on HistoTrac Lite, and this could be what your solution is needing. It would be a subscription-based model. It would be on-premise, so you would host it, but it's going to come pre-configured with standardized values. So there wouldn't be any of kind of the customization that would need to happen because that's sort of already been done for you. It would make a simple, more out-of-the-box implementation for you. You would still be able to, it still will offer you the ability to create patients and link them, accession samples, order your antibody typing, crossmatch, and extraction test, review and sign them off, generate the reports, and then it would have interfaces to lab type, lab screen, single antigen, TypeStream Visual, SureTyper, and NanoDrop. It's just a little comparison about what HistoTrac Lite will do, and this is what full-on HistoTrac. And sometimes, you know, there's a lot of labs where they don't use these features, so maybe you don't need them, and so this would be a great opportunity for that. So what could be some of the benefits for this? Again, we're still allowing you, even with a more out-of-the-box solution, you're still able to improve your data management. It's giving you increased affordability, faster reporting, faster implementation. And I think with that, we'll go ahead and I'll introduce Dr. Wong. And so she was gracious enough to share her story on implementation. So Dr. Yangpeng Wong is currently the Director of Histocompatibility and Immunogenetics Laboratory at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital and is an Associate Professor of Department of Pathology and Genomic Medicine at Thomas Jefferson University. Before joining Jefferson, Dr. Wong received her director training and worked as an immunogenetics scientist at the Immunogenetics and Histocompatibility Laboratory at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, where she is a longstanding research interest in molecular mechanisms that lead to T-cell activation and migration. She received a scientist development grant from the American Heart Association and a KO1 award from the National Institute of Arthritis and Musculoskeletal and Skin Diseases. Her interest and efforts on studying T-cell biology have resulted in publications in cutting-edge scientific journals that include the Journal of Clinical Investigation and Blood and Journal of Immunology. After moving to the HLA field, her recent research interests have focused on developing new methods to better assess donor-recipient compatibility before the transplant and better monitoring of graft function post-transplant. Before starting her career in the US, Dr. Wong received her medical training at the Medical School of Tongji University and her PhD from Peking Union Medical College in China. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Wong.
Okay, I'm just going to take this opportunity to talk about our experience of a HistoTrac implementation. It's unique because it's really a complex process. This is just my disclaimer. So what I'm saying or what I'm showing is nothing what Lambda or some official want me to say. So just want to give you a background. On October 4th, 2021, Jefferson Health and Einstein Health finalized merge. Just keep in mind, so these two hospitals actually use different healthcare software to manage patient medical record. So Jefferson used Epic, Einstein used Cerner. So as part of hospital integration plan, so on November 15, 2021, Jefferson and Einstein HLA lab were consolidated. So two HLA lab combined become one HLA lab. So also these two HLA lab use different laboratory information system. So Jefferson used Matida, while Einstein used HistoTrac. So clearly, you can see we need a merge two lab information system for combined lab, and for the new system, need to be able to organize lab workflow with increased efficiency. And we want to have an integrated system for digital document control. Basically, with new system, we hope we can go paperless. We don't want to do, those patient chart anymore. At the same time, we also need to maintain current interface between Epic and Cerner for test order resulting and billing. In Jefferson actually has an Epic Matida interface build, and also Einstein has a Cerner HistoTrac interface build. Lastly, actually, our lab not just serves Jefferson and Einstein, we also provide service to several local hospitals. So we need to be able to handle outside center billing and report. So the final decision was made to use HistoTrac for the combined lab. So from this history and what those background, you actually can say the whole process is going to be really complex. So that's why we separate them into different stages to get this project finished up. So first, we have to form a team. This team include experts from Jefferson, Einstein, and SystemLink work on this project. And the team actually met weekly to report progress. And if there's any problem, we will discuss during the meeting. So initially, Jefferson IT and Einstein IT, so they help us build a network and a firewall between Einstein and Jefferson. So this is like a temporary solution to handle Einstein work. So what does this mean? So Einstein work will come to the lab, the test finish up, but the lab will need to remote to Einstein to report out. So that's is at the very beginning. Then at the beginning of 2022, we work on the step 1 to merge Fusion database and also migrate HistoTrac database to Jefferson. So we can actually use HistoTrac at Jefferson. So this takes 3 months. Then the second step is take another 4 months. And so this is include a lot more work, including convert metadata, build a HistoTrac Epic interface for a full HistoTrac implementation. And we also make sure HistoTrac and the Cerner interface is not interrupted. So just show you more detail, like in step 1, there's 3 major components was included in step 1. So we have to merge Einstein and Jefferson database for HLA Fusion analysis software. We also upgrade HistoTrac to the most current version and migrate HistoTrac database to Jefferson. Then the third part component is HL7 reconfiguration to make sure Cerner HistoTrac interface still remain intact. So the first go live date was March 22, 2022. So at this stage, the lab no longer needed to remote to Einstein to result. But we still have 2 systems in the lab, Metida and HistoTrac. So the second stage include a lot more work. It's pretty much 5 major components you can see from here. So the first one will be like Metida data conversion. And we have to replace Epic Metida with Epic HistoTrac interface. We actually build an independent billing interface, which can handle both internal, like Einstein and Jefferson billing, and also outside center billing. And the HistoTrac utility testing and the verification, those are 3 major components we are using. HistoTrac utility for HLA Fusion, type stream visual, and incoming order. And the last one is the clinical report. We made a lot of change. We consolidate the old clinical report and make them more straightforward. So the second go live was on July 25, 2022. Then right after the second stage go live, we move to this post go live support. It's pretty much started right after second stage until the end of 2022. So the same team will met regularly. On top of this meeting, we actually have a HistoTrac user meeting. It's a weekly meeting, which is very useful. So all those provide immediate solution and support for post-transplant. So I'm just going to go through quickly some like utility we are using in the lab. So you can say that's pretty much the for major utility, we're using, so most of you, if you're using HistoTrac, you're probably very familiar with Fusion utility, and TSV utility is used for NGS, HLA NGS import data. And incoming water can take water both from Einstein and Jefferson. So if you have not using this, I really highly recommend this UNOS waitlist. UNOS and utility. It's very useful. It's including both waitlist management, which can keep patients data up to date in your database, and also can sending unacceptables back to UNOS. Especially for the center, if you have a significant patient waiting list, this is very useful too. So yeah, those people probably were already familiar. So workflow are nicely organized. It's facilitate routine lab operation. So workflow can be organized by result. It's the test and the review and the sign off. So and we have this billing interface set up. As soon as the test was signed off, the billing will drop, and we actually can create a report or invoice whenever we want. This HistoTrac built-in virtual crossmatch tool, this was another one very useful to the lab. We actually were able to develop a standardized virtual crossmatch protocol in the lab. So since we implement HistoTrac last July, it's like 9 months now. The lab is very happy. This is like a powerful and really user-friendly tool for HLA Lab. I actually highly recommend it. So finally, I just want to thank the people who did the work. Many people actually contribute to this project. I just highlighted some key personnel, like Hillary. She's the key person doing a lot of testing and validation from the lab. And the system link part, Scott, he does not really regularly met with us, but he pretty much still work from the back end. Scott did all the metadata conversion. So Ken is our HLA really specialist. We see him the most time. He always bring our question and our requirement back to HistoTrac. And Patrick, built the whole HL7 billing and reporting system. He's really great. So we still are making changes to our incoming water module. Since go live, we have made probably several changes. So Patrick always did a wonderful job to get result back to us. So Stephanie, she helped me with the work clinic report. I think my request is really challenging. She was able to get it. For Jefferson part, Michael Paris is really the project keeper. So he's very on top. Make sure the project was get done, and our kind of like help us interact with Jefferson IT and Einstein IT. So you can see there's a long list from Jefferson IT people, folks really helpful. Einstein IT was very useful. And the Jefferson Laboratory Administrator, they help us to get a funding for this project. So really thankful to all those people. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank everybody for attending today, especially Dr. Wang and Brooke for your presentations. And I look forward to connecting with you in the future. Thank you very much and have a great afternoon.